As people, we tend to look to the future to plan ahead, but the older generation and the younger generation plan for very different realities. The younger generation looking ahead, perhaps to be married, perhaps for a career, but the older generation, like myself, we are getting a clearer sign that life is awfully short and that each one of us is going to face the moment of death before very long. These last couple of weeks, the readings have been instructing us and reminding us of the shortness of life, about how we are going to conduct and plan for our future and placing ourselves always in God's hands. But the end of the world is something we do not know about. So right now, I think we've all lived through lots of predictions about the end of the world. The funny thing is, all of them have failed, but that doesn't seem to stop people from trying to plan them. It's interesting that these people tend to be ones who take the Bible so literally, and yet they don't hear the words of today's gospel in which Jesus says, no person can know the date, not even the Son of Man. But we know that it's coming someday. But there are too many references, I think, in the Bible for us to dismiss Judgment Day as something that's only a figure of speech or something that people would use in order to scare us into being people of faith. Rather, fear is never a good objection for all us. It is never something that we should always try to follow. The God we believe in is a God of love. And so we are invited to look at this time with the love of God, because God is always there. Perhaps the notion that the end of the world is coming is a helpful reminder to us to be people who live in a very balanced way. That is, we are people of this world, and we live in this world, but we are not of this world. We plan for a future, both here on earth, but also in the time to come. And so it helps us to evaluate our life. How are we living the gospel? How are we trying to be disciples of Jesus Christ in that? Towards the end of the liturgical year, as the gospel today reminds us, we are invited to be people who interpret the day of judgment as a reality that is there. But Jesus reminds us, as we look around the world, and we see so much war, violence, earthquakes, and dangers, it's a reminder these are not the signs of the end of the world, but rather part of the continuation of life. But perhaps it is the end of the world that reminds us that we long for justice, and that can only come with the time of Christ. But as we cast off our earthly bodies in death, we are reminded that we become travelers into an unexplored territory. The gospel is a reminder that our life is a lot longer than we think it is. It is more than just what we are living here on earth. God, in His Son, has promised us immortality. He has promised us a kingdom that is there. And so, yes, we need to be people who look into the future and to recognize this is only the first part of our life, and we need to plan accordingly. Cardinal Newman wrote about the hereafter. He said, "Do not fear that your life will come to an end, but rather that it will never have a beginning. It is when our next life begins that we will clearly understand our present life." You know, while we live in this world and we try to be loving people, we don't always recognize the influence and the effects that our lives have here on earth. That is one of the revelations that will come to us when we will be able to see that our life was indeed fruitful, that our raising of children, the sacrifices that we made, everything that we did, our involvement in the community, in the church, all of these were part of the mission that Jesus gave to us, and that we were faithful servants, faithful stewards of what God has given to us. And so in these last Sundays, it's a reminder that all the worries that we have, all the troubles, all the time that we spend worrying about things, all the selfish concerns will indeed end. And so we are reminded we are eternal. So let's not be people who never look to the immediate future, We are exiles living in this world, and let's remember that. We are travelers, and while we may not know the exact belief of what the kingdom of God is, it's something beyond our experience. Yet it is not beyond our faith, it is not beyond reason. But do you realize that every time you come to church, we are praying that we would be worthy for the kingdom of God, that we are preparing? In Eucharistic prayer number 3, the priest reads, "May he make of us an eternal offering to you, so that we may obtain an inheritance with your elect." In Eucharistic prayer number 4, we read, "To all of us, your children, grant, O merciful Father, that we may enter into a heavenly inheritance." In one of the Eucharistic prayers for various needs and occasions, "Grant to us, when our earthly pilgrimage is done, that we may come to an eternal dwelling place and live with you forever." Yes, we're probably not aware that that's what we're praying for, and that should be our motto, and that should be something important to all of us, that yes, we are preparing for the kingdom of God. It is not something to be feared. Yes, the unknown is always fearful, but as we saw on November 2nd, we fall into the merciful hands of a loving God who is always there for us, the God that we come to know here on earth, but the God who is also waiting for us to fulfill every hope, every promise, to give us the happiness that we are waiting for. And so it's useless trying to speculate when Christ will come in glory. His message is, be watchful every day, but it's a reminder of the shortness of our lives. But we need not be afraid. Let us not fear what happens here on earth, the falling stars, the earthquakes, the famine that is there. But if we love God, there is no fear. We do not need to be alarmed. For love casts out fear. Until that day, until the Lord calls us, let us go on preparing every day to meet him. And let us be sincere that we may offer ourselves to God so that we may obtain an inheritance with him.